this is Mr. Ng going over your Math 5 factoring test on March 19th. That should say 2019. Go ahead and change that right there. Multiple choice directions. Carefully circle the right answer. Question number 1 says true or false. Look at question number 2 below. And does it have a greatest common factor? So we look at question number 2 right here. A little bit hard to see on the prints. 20x minus 10. If you break them into factors, I have 10 times 2 times x. Over here, I have negative 10 is broken down to negative 1 times x. Recognize that they have a 10 in common. So yes, they do have a greatest common factor. So for number 1, it is true. For question 2, the answer is B. 10 times 2x minus 1 is the greatest common factor. All right, if you take a look at this student's work, they write out the factors of 5 times 4 times x, that gives you 20x, and then 2 times 5. So why is this one wrong? Yes, 5 is a common factor, but it's not the greatest one. I just showed you it was 10. Now, the reason why is you can pull out another 2, so that would be 2 times 5 gives you the 10. So this one would equal, correct, 2 would be a common factor, but not the greatest one. 5 is a common factor, but not the greatest, and then this one doesn't even come close. Question number 2 here says, 3 says, multiple choice, factor the trinomial completely. If the polynomial cannot be factored, write prime, or circle prime. So where is the trinomial? 1, 2, 3 terms. And so here I wrote standard form right above it. ax squared plus bx plus c. The a, b's, and c's are the numbers in front of the x squared, so that would be the a value, b value would be 7, and c value would be negative 18. And so if I take these a, b's, and c's, I'm going to teach you guys a method called xbox. So you take a times c, and that gives you negative 18, and then your b value, which is 7. These two numbers here need to multiply to be negative 18, but also to add to be 7. If you list out a combination of just 18, you have 18 times 1, 9 times 2, 6 times 3. Put the bigger number on the left, and then you can kind of do a subtraction going across. And this kind of gives you an idea, right? 9 and 2, well, if I subtract one of those, you're going to get 7. So if I put negative 2, 9 times negative 2 is negative 18, and then 9 plus negative 2, or 9 minus 2 gives you 7. Well, what do you do with these new numbers? Here, you're going to always take the left one here and put it here in the bottom left, and take the right one and put it in the top right. And there you're going to add an x. And the reason why you add an x there is because basically 9x and negative 2x are splitting the middle term of 7x. Here in this box, then you put in here in the top left, you always put your a x squared value. So that would be just x squared. And then you're always going to put your c value, negative 18, here. And then now what you're going to do is you're going to do, you can think of this as 2 ways. Number 1, you're going to take out the greatest common factor for each column and each row. Or you can just think about what do you need to multiply on the outside to get what you need on the inside, the area model. So in this case, x squared is x times x. Here the greatest common factor between these two is an x, or you can think of it as x times something. That something is negative 2 times gives you negative 2x. And you can put a 9 here because 9 times x gives you 9x, and 9 times negative 2 gives you negative 18. So x minus 2 times x plus 9, that is the correct answer. This one's incorrect. And you know how you can check your answer is you just actually take these two binomials and put them on the sides of your box and then just multiply and combine like terms, and you'll get the original trinomial. So this one's incorrect because you'll get x squared times 9x plus 2x plus 18. It gives you x squared plus 11x plus 18 is your answer, and that would be incorrect because that doesn't equal the original. Now, if this puzzle did not work, then it would be called a prime factor, and a lot of students usually guess on that, so don't pick that unless you're for sure know that it does not work. Here's a student here for question number 3, didn't identify their ABCCs and didn't use their X box. I like this student work here because they're trying to figure out was there a greatest common factor in the beginning. Quick way to know there's not a greatest common factor is there's no a value and then you already have x to the squared. If it's something like x to the third and they all had x's, but this is good because the student's recognizing that, checking for the greatest common factor, and they showed their work even though they didn't need to, but definitely shows us they understand how to do the problem. All right, question number 4 says multiple choice. One factor of 3x squared plus 11x minus 4 is, well, they give you 5 choices here. And the correct answer is C. I mismarked E. And the first thing you're going to do is identify your A, B, and C's and C's. Remember, your A, B's, and C's will always be numbers. You'll never have any letters or variables over here. So it's the coefficient. So A is 3, B is 11, and C is -4. You're going to take A times C. So 3 times -4 gives me -12. And then down here, you're going to put your B value. For me, it helps to write out all the factors of 12. So 12 times 1, 6 times 2, 4 times 3. And then I need to pick 2 numbers that will multiply to be -12 and to add to be 11. So good learning strategy right here is, why did I cross that out? I would grade myself messy. Of course, I do pen to help you guys see it. You should be using pencil. I originally had -4 and -3 because -4 times -3, if you think about that, that would give you a +12, not -12, so that's totally wrong. And then -4 plus a -3 would give you a -7, not +11, so that was wrong. So here I would have picked 12 and 1 because 12 times -1 gives you -12, and 12 plus a -1 or 12 minus 1 gives you a 11. Now, if you didn't pick up on the trick is if your A value is equal to 1, you only need to use the x, and then you can just use these 2 numbers as your answer. Look, 9, -2. Over here, you can't do that, so you cannot put like x plus 12 and x minus 1. If your A value is greater than 1, like this problem, you must do the box. So I take the 12, put an x, -1, put an x. They will always go in the bottom left and top right. It doesn't matter which order. Your A value goes in the top left, and your C value will always go in the bottom right. If you think to yourself, what's the greatest common factor here? You cannot put the 3 here. And here's the reason why you can't put the 3. 3 times something can never equal -1. It would be a fraction of 1/3. So instead of putting the 3 here, you're going to put the 3 here. And here's another way you know that. 3x squared plus 12x, the greatest common factor would be 3x. So x times 3x gives you 3x squared. What's the greatest common factor in this case? You might think of 4 or -4, and then you can also tell by that, if you just put that number here, if it's a +4 times 3 gives you, 3x times gives you 12x. And x times -1 gives you -1x, and -1 times 4 gives you -4. So my factors are going to be x plus 4 and 3x minus 1 is my answer. And again, this is how you check your answer. You just take your binomials, just like I did, and then if you multiply, and then you combine like terms in here, you'll realize that becomes 3x squared plus 11x minus 4. So let's take a look. X plus 4 is not on my list, but 3x minus 1 is, so the correct answer is C. All right, I want to show you the student work. This student was so close. They realized that it was 12 and -1. But look up here. A times C should have been a -12. And why do I say that? That -12 should have been right there. So that's what I recognize for this student. And then here's another way you can double check that. 1 times +1 is not -1. So something's wrong there. Question number 5, multiple choice. So we'll get a little closer. Factor completely x squared minus 4x plus 4 if possible. So A value is 1, B value is -4, C value is 4. So I get A times C, which gives me +4, and my B value is -4. What are 2 numbers that multiply to be a +4? That's -2 and -2. And if you add those together, -2 plus a -2, that gives you a -4. So I'm going to put my -2x down here, and my -2 over here, and then my A value x squared here, and my C value in the bottom right. And then I realize it's x times x gives me x squared. And then over here, it's x times a -2 gives me a -2x, so that's why I put a -2, that says -2. And over here, the same thing, you're putting a minus 2 there, so x times a negative 2 gives you a negative 2x. That should read a negative. And then negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 2. So you have x minus 2 and x minus 2. You have two of them, and you could have been tempted to answer question E, and the reason why E is correct is because this is not simplified. I don't know, let's just say I went to McDonald's with my kids for lunch, and then you order 2 Happy Meals. You don't say, I want 1 Happy Meal, 6-piece chicken nugget, and then I want another Happy Meal, 6-piece chicken nugget. Usually when they reread your order, they're just going to say 2 Happy Meal 6-piece chicken nuggets. There's going to be 2 of them, so you have to put those together. So that would be x minus 2 squared. Your correct answer is A. Okay, the student marked E, which was the most common mistake. Again, if you took that apart, you would get x minus 2 squared. So having the exponent is more simplified. Question number 6, multiple choice. Factor r squared minus 49. So here you should recognize that you have an A value and a C value, but no B value. So you have to put that placeholder there. R squared plus 0r minus 49. And what's happening here is A times C is negative 49. Your B value is 0. Two numbers that multiply to be negative 49. That'd be positive 7 and negative 7. And remember, because they're opposites, if you add them together, they will equal 0. Put a 7 here. Add the R, negative 7r. A value, r squared, goes here, and then C value, negative 49, and you just factor r times r. This will become a 7, positive 7, so 7 times r is 7r, and r times negative 7 is negative 7r. And then negative 7 times a positive 7 gives you a negative 49. And then here you need to combine, then you have on the outside of your box r minus 7 and r plus 7. Notice how those are both pluses, these are both minuses, and you have one of each. Your answer is D. Remember, it doesn't matter which order you write the factors, meaning you could have written r plus 7 over here and r minus 7. And this is a special case. They call this a difference of squares. Name is not important, but recognize you need a 0 there. I like the students' work here. They realized it was a 0. It's okay too. The student put in, instead of an r, they felt more comfortable with an x. Totally fine. I like it though, in their answer though, they put the r's, and the student recognized that it was an A value of 1, so you didn't have to actually use the box. All right, question number 7. Factor completely, and then you get 1 point to solve, extra credit. All right, the best thing you could have done in this problem is recognize that it's not set equal to 0. How do I get set equal to 0? If I subtract 8k from both sides, you get 2k squared minus 8k minus 10 equals 0. And you recognize that all these numbers are even, so you could take out a greatest common factor of a 2. So you get k squared minus 4k minus 5. And then if I could, I would highlight this part right here, because this is the part that's getting my A, B's, and C's. So my A value is going to be 1, B value negative 4, and C value negative 5. So A times C is negative 5. Your B value is negative 4. And then the two numbers that multiply to be negative 5 are negative 5 and 1, because those same two numbers will be adding to negative 4. Remember, if you recognize the trick, you don't need to do the box. You can just take that number, negative 5, and a positive 1. If you didn't recognize it, you can just put here, negative 5, this is a negative 5k, and a positive 1k. And then your A value inside the parentheses that I try to put a box or highlight there, that would become k squared, and your C value is negative 5, not negative 10. So then that would be k times k gives you k squared, k times 1 gives you 1k, and then k times negative 5 gives you negative 5k. And negative 5 times 1 gives you negative 5. So your answers would be here, k minus 5, k plus 1. So this here in the red box would be your answer for the factoring completely for 4 points. You must have that greatest common factor on the outside. Okay, how do you solve? Well, you apply something called the zero product rule, which means you set each of these factors equal to 0. So 2 equals 0, k plus 1 equals 0, and k minus 5 equals 0. 2 can never equal 0. That's not a solution, so you can cross that off. That doesn't count. Subtract 1 from both sides, you get k equals negative 1, and add 5 for those sides, you get k equals 5. So this is solving. This would give you the extra point. How did I score that? You got 3 points this was a common mistake. You got k minus 5 and then 2k plus 2. And the reason why is that you can pull out a greatest common factor right here. That would be a 2, and that 2 can go in front. I give you 2 points out of 4 if you found the greatest common factor to be 2, or maybe your x was correct, but you couldn't get to the final factors. Now in this problem, math is very forgiving. Let's just say you didn't recognize the GCF. Let's just say you chose this to be in your X box. Let me show you. There's my family. All right, so if you took A times C, you would get negative 20 and a B value of negative 8. And then two numbers that multiply by negative 20 are negative 10 and 2. If you add those two numbers, you get negative 8. So if you put negative 10k or negative 10x here, and then positive 2x here, then you take your A term, which again you didn't find, the GCF would be 2x squared. And then, let's see if I can zoom in. 2x squared there, and your C value is negative 10, so then your greatest common factor going in this direction would be a 2x. And this direction is just an x. And the reason why is because 2x times negative 5 gives you negative 10x. You couldn't put a minus 10 there. And then over here, that would be a 2, because 2 times x gives you 2x, and 2 times negative 5 gives you negative 10. So then my factors are going to be 2x or 2k plus 2, and then k minus 5, and then you can just factor out that 2. All right, so I gave the student partial credit because their X method right here was correct. This one would have been also, double check that one. I would have liked to have seen that the student knew that to write factors, because they kind of did it twice and didn't know what to do from there. They didn't get me the parentheses in a box, so yeah, no box answer for that one. So I gave them a 2. All right, take a look at this one. Subtracted 8k, yes. GCF, yes. Got it. Oh yeah, boxed it. Looks good. Full credit. Great job. All right, here's a partial credit on this one because they didn't figure out the greatest common factor right there. They could have factored out another 2. Remember in this problem, if you got this, then you would have gotten 5 points out of 4, which would have been extra credit. Question number 8a, very similar to the one above. I have an equation here, and I ask you to identify the a, b, and c. Well, in this problem, to set it equal to 0, you're going to have to add 10 to both sides, and you get x squared plus 7x plus 10 equals 0. And then if you write the a, b's, and c's right above it or below it, you'll recognize your a value as nothing here, so that is 1. A is 1, b is 7, and c is a positive 10. So each of these little blanks is 1 point. Remember, in this blank, you should never, ever have any variables, just numbers. This student did an excellent job, just added 10 to both sides, and you found it 1, 7, and 10. All right, so here's that student. Interesting enough, that student knew to add 10 here, but they wrote negative 10, so that's when they only got 2 points correct. All right, so this is the student I wanted to show that, like, a lot of students, again, no variables, and they just wrote x squared. They should have recognized the number in front, which is 1. And then they just put the whole bx value, but b is only the 7. And the c value is a positive 10, not a negative 10. Question number 8b, solve the polynomial by factoring in question 8a. So how do you solve the equation? Again, I know the directions say solve, but I made it 4 points for factoring, which is full credit for this problem, and then 1 point extra credit if you solve. So how do you do that? Well, you factor them. You already have your a, b's, and c's, and then a times c is 10, b value is 7, two numbers that multiply to be 10 are 5 and 2, and these same two numbers will add to be 7. So it's x plus 5 and x plus 2. Remember, you don't need the box, but because a value is 1, but if you don't see that, then you could put 5x, 2x, x squared in the top left always, and the c value always in the bottom right. So this would be x and x. And this would be a 5 and x, so 5 times x gives you 5x, and then x times 2 gives you 2x, and then 2 times 5 gives you 10. So x plus 5, x plus 2. If you set each of those equal to 0, that's called the zero product rule. Essentially, one of those is going to equal 0. So then if we subtract 5, you get x equals -5 and x equals -2. And that's how you got the solver, the extra credit point. All right, this student got their x correct, and then the box, and then they knew, I wish that they did, I would have wished I wrote SW, because they have x plus 2, x minus 5 is correct, and then if you set x plus 2 equal to 0, I would have written SW to show more work, and borderline, maybe take the point away, because you have some answers here, but not the supporting work. See, the student previously got a -10 here, and that messes them up because then they can't figure out the Xbox method. This one looks nice, has all the work. Didn't know how to solve, but at least they know how to factor. All right, let's take a look at this, students. Yeah, so they got 5 and a -2. That gives you a -10, but 5 plus -2 does not equal a +7. So they had a dilemma, and then also in their answer they had an extra x. So this was not correct, so I gave them only a 1 point out of 4 for a genuine attempt. All right, question number 9, factor completely. You have an a value that's 1, b value is 2, c value is -8, so a times c is -8, b value is 2. Two numbers that multiply to be -8 are 4 and -2, and those two add will also be to be +2. Take here, add your variables, so it'll be 4r, -2r. A term always goes in the top left and the bottom right. And the great thing about this Xbox method is that it actually becomes another method that we'll be using called factoring by grouping. So r times r is r squared, r times -2 is -2r, r times 4 is 4r, and +4 times -2 is -8. And so my answer is r minus 2, r plus 4. Again, if you did something similar, if you get the x method correct, I would give you 2. Maybe you made some mistake over here, I would give you some partial credit, and then full credit if you had those factors. Look at this one, looks nice, good job. Let's take a look at this one. So they need to put the b value down here, and they have 2r, -8. Maybe they didn't realize it was a 4 and a +2. And then notice here, look at this positive, and they wrote negatives. So way off. And the way to double check that is if you just put this on the area model, you'll get r squared, -4r, -2r, and +8, which would have been incorrect. So the student knew to write a, b's, and c's. A times c is -8. Do you see that? I think they thought c value was just a +8. No. It's the number in front, and then whether it's positive or negative, that's your c value. So the case c value is -8. All right, this student, I know what they were doing. They broke them into factors to see if there's a greatest common factor, and they don't. They don't have a greatest common factor. Look here. This student even realized it by multiplying. Look. So 2 times r squared is 2r squared. 2 times r is 2r, and 2 times -4, -2 is -4. So the question, is this polynomial the same as the original? The answer is no, because this one has a 2 in front and this one doesn't. So in this case, the student was trying to find the greatest common factor, and there is no greatest common factor. All right, question number 5. Factor completely 5p to the third minus 37p squared plus 42p. The first thing you should recognize is to the third power. And half of 3 is 1.5, so you can't use the Xbox method, but if you take out a p, your GCF is a p. This has a p, 3 of them, p times p times p, p times p, and just a p, so they recognize they have a p. So next thing you do is here inside your parentheses you have your a value, which is 5, b value is -37, and c value is 42. A times C is 210, and your B value is negative 37. So the numbers got very large, and I was thinking to myself, I need to write out all the factors. 210 times 1, and then you just break it in half if you can. 105 times 2, 70, I missed one up here, 70 times 3, not on there. And then I realized, okay, you could do 30 times 7. Well, you could do the two numbers you just multiplied, 42 times 5. And then what I recognize is that if I put the larger number on the left and then I can just kind of subtract across, I need something to equal negative 37. Well, there it was right there, 42 and 5. Now, I did think about 42 and 5 originally, and then I realized that I couldn't get this value, because if this is a positive 42 and I get a negative 5, that would equal a positive 37. So I was incorrect, and I was looking at my list, and then I realized it's the 30 and 7. 30 minus 7 gives me negative 37, and negative 30 times negative 7 gives me positive 210. So I took negative 30p, negative 7p, and then my a value, which was inside the parentheses, 5p squared, and then my c value, which is 42. So then you're thinking, where should I put the 5? I can't put the 5 here because 5 times something can't equal negative 7. So 5p times p gives me 5p squared. P times negative 7 gives me negative 7p. And then the greatest common factor going this direction is negative 6. You'll know that by 5p times something equals negative 30p. Another way you can think about it is negative 30p divided by 5p gives you negative 6. And then negative 6 times negative 7 gives you positive 42. So your correct grand answer is p times p minus 6 times 5p minus 7. There's your answer. I should have a box around that. And I give you partial credit if you wrote just these two terms without the greatest common factor. You must have that, because if you multiply, then it gives you the cubic function. And if you only found out that has a p as your greatest common factor, then at least give you 2 points. That side was at 19. 14, add those together, and you get 33. Let's look at some student work here. Here I gave this student 2 points, greatest common factor. I think a calculator would have helped. Okay, this is the work that the student fell into, just like I did. Is that, well, number one, they didn't recognize there was a greatest common factor. Number two, 42 minus 5 does give you, you would have to switch those, right? Negative 42 and a positive 5 gives you negative 37. So, and then again, if you multiply those, you've got a negative. So incorrect. Same thing with this student. They picked 42 and 5, and they were incorrect. But this I like. They wrote, combinations, which is helpful. All right, so I like this one. See, they broke them into factors, and they recognize they all have a p in common. That's good. And then they identify their A, B's, and C's. I like that. They're getting so close. Look. They got everything correct over here, and the only thing they missed was the greatest common factor that they already had found right here. So they just have to copy that number down here. I hope these corrections were helpful for you and helps you know how to factor, so we can use that for Chapter 6, Section 4, 6.4. Good luck, and see you guys later.